Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, crypto traders around the world. It occurred to me that I should speak about the bear in the room a little bit deeper. I covered it, touched on it briefly on the Libero financial episodes, both on YouTube as well as cryptotalkradio.net, where you can find all of our various podcasts. And it seems like there's there's two different groups of people. There are people who are the true skeptics, right? They don't believe that liberal financial is or could be something legitimate. And we've never stated that it is or isn't. We don't care. We go off what they said. And according to what they said, it still pans true. Even now, with its price ever shy of a penny, it still managed to persist its value very well, considering that we're still seeing the Bitcoin and Ethereums of the world have some issues. And so it occurred to me that people don't really get why we've said on a repeated basis that we've changed our strategy. What does that mean? And we had the other group, we've had people reach out who said, you know what, we appreciate that you put it that way because it's something we never thought of, this paradigm of, well, why are you holding? Let me add some framework around that. Every token now that releases, predominantly, I shouldn't say all, predominantly, every token that releases now, every community that you go to, what is the consistent message that you hear? Hold, 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 or hodl, 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 over and over again. Just hold. And we're going to the moon. Let's fucking go. That's the narrative you hear. It is consistent. It is pervasive. It is it's unsettling, frankly, that it's almost like they want you to cult follow them to the so-called moon. Or now we get creative and say to Saturn. But regardless, I was at one point bought in when I first got into cryptocurrency. I was at one point convinced in that strategy because there's a logic to it. The logic is the price will move over time. And we expect the price to go up over time. And as the price goes up, your initial investment should grow according to this. But I didn't have significant amounts of money to try that theory. So I took what money I had and I bought SHIB, Shiba Inu. And this was at a time when it had way more zeros than it has right now, just to be put it clear. And I bought it and, I'm like, okay, I'll sit on it. And I must have had like 16 million at the time, which today is roughly about $900 to $1,000. It's not a lot, right? But at the time, I didn't invest a lot of money in it. And I figured I'll just wait and I'll hold it. HODL, HODL, but I'll wait and see how it plays out. And it grew a little bit. The real breaking point for me with SHIB, Shiba Inu, was Coinbase. And you're like, where? Coinbase Pro was the first to list Shiba Inu as far as a major exchange. This opened up the doors, presumably, for people to be able to purchase and sell it without having to fight gas fees, which at the time were starting to grow significantly as NFTs became a thing. So now I'm sitting on this bag of Shiba Inu, and I have to figure out, because I want to benefit from this exchange and potentially see if I can make some profit, because my initial investment was so low that even if I were to sell then, I would have been easily 10x minimum. All right, so now I'm back stuck with the gas fees again. I figure out how to get the gas enough, and I think it was like $80 to $100, some stupid number. I figure out how to get enough gas over into that wallet, which at the time I was using Coinbase Wallet, ironically. Do the transfer when it, into a different wallet so I can get ready to get it to Coinbase. You're like, well, why did you do it that way? Because when Coinbase went live with this thing in Coinbase Pro, it was a disaster, absolute disaster. For whatever reason, the price was jacked up. When I say jacked up, I both mean screwed up, or in military terms, snafu or foobar, depending on how you perceive it, but also jacked up as far as increased. Literally, the price was unreasonable. I want to say it was like 3 zeros and a 5. It was an unreasonable price when it went live. Coinbase caught it and they blocked. So they initially allowed people to transfer in if you caught it and you timed it right, but then they blocked it. Anybody who was quick enough and they got theirs over there was then able to sell their SHIB, Shiba Inu for way higher than what it was worth at the time. Because you also have to consider this was before CoinMarketCap had changed the circulating supply. So the price movement was already in a positive trend. And then you couple that with this botch on CoinMarketCap, plus this issue with Coinbase Pro, and popularity of SHIB and Shiba Inu and excitement that it's going to be on Coinbase for more availability and getting away from gas. Like all these things together created a perfect storm of, I almost cussed, a perfect storm of BS that anybody who was fast enough that was sitting on major bags was able to essentially rip people off that were interested in the token because those were legit sells at the higher price. Meanwhile, I've got mine still in the wallet, and I'm seeing that I'd like to go ahead and take advantage of this because I'd at that point have been 50x. Wouldn't have been a millionaire, but it'd have been a lot of money. So I'm working with Coinbase. I actually filed a complaint with them and with government because I felt it was wrong. It's like, if you're going to do that, take it on the chin and let everybody just do it. And eventually the price will correct itself. That's why there's something called correction, because at some point that demand is going to taper off. There's going to always be availability for sells. If people are buying at that price, let them go ahead and do it. That was my theory. When Coinbase changed it back to the true price, quote unquote, people were pissed off, rightfully so, because a lot of them bought in at a price that wasn't really legit. So they then were sitting on bags. Fast forward, and CoinMarketCap corrects the circulating supply, which then corrects the price. So we had gotten above the original all-time high, and then it tanked right back down. Many of those people, if they kept holding it, might have lost, or they might have netted zero, or they might have gained a little bit. But the point is, now you have this scenario where early buyers that hold, they're sitting at a profit. Basically, they're up, but it now is not going to go up in price significantly more without significant burns. If you're one that sold in the whole Coinbase Pro fiasco, you might have actually taken significant profit now, but then you see what's happening with the current day and you might have FOMO'd back in because you expect that something will happen in the future. Ultimately, my point is, nobody really, people won in the sense that anybody who was in for the beginning is at a profit. Anybody who bought off that fiasco in Coinbase Pro might be at a profit, but not necessarily because it went back down, but there's an opportunity for it to go back up. So your hold strategy, or HODL, HODL strategy, might change based on when you initially bought in. If you're the one, and this is where I'm going with this, if you're one of those that bought into any project at the beginning with the intent being that I'll let it go to $1 million or whatnot, that's cool if that makes sense for you. For me, there were so many variables, and I'm using SHIB as just the example so you can understand the thought process that went into it, because it's the same things that keep happening to every token now. There's always these variables that get in the way of where we should be going from a growth perspective. It sounds good because SHIB was able to get to a point of significant growth. It sounds good because Doge was able to get to a point of significant growth. Today, though, I would argue we don't see hardly any tokens outside of Libero Financial, which I've covered, that have been able to consistently drop the zeros the same velocity that we saw in 2020. I think that's a symptom of the change of sentiment of people. Remember, if the vast majority of people are not buying into the token and doing transactional sells at a higher price to push the price up, and the volume's not going where we want it, and the holder count's not going up, this blend of marketing, if that's not happening, you can hold until you're gray, and it may or may not pan out. But also think about it. You have tokens where there's some rogue dev. They go rogue, they leave the project, and maybe they were critical to the project, or maybe they dump a wallet. You have projects where the devs quit. So it's not that the token's, quote, dead or whatever, it's that it no longer has any dev support. Doge at one point was like this. They basically abandoned the project at a point. And then there's other tokens where the project's still there, but there's nobody supporting it. There's nobody advertising it. There's nobody marketing it. There's nobody to help it make success because the devs quit. They basically quit. There was nothing wrong with it. They just quit. They couldn't succeed because they sucked at the job and it was too much for them. Santacoin, I would argue, is a great example of this. I covered Santacoin early on, and there was nothing wrong with the code fundamentally, but the dev, unfortunately, got attacked on some AMA where it was revealed that they were out of Nigeria. And then because they got triggered in Telegram, or Telescam as we call it, they basically quit. And they told people, go ahead and sell. And they quit. But there's nothing wrong with the code, even now. You have other projects where it was built and had the best of intentions, but because they don't know how to market correctly, the token doesn't succeed. ID Finance, I would argue, AIDI, is a good example of this. Dozilla is a great example of this. Because we see this sprawl of we're seeing tokens that just basically kind of copy. They copy paste and they want to try to succeed like SHIB did. Because they're trying to copy that model while not realizing that that was a perfect scenario that cannot be easily replicated. Many of these tokens just don't succeed where they should. I would argue today, Paratoken should be way higher than it is, but their devs suck at marketing, number one. Number two, they're triggered on Telescam, and they don't know that they're sitting on gold from what I can see. They're sitting on gold, and they don't understand how to make it turn into true gold. Then you have other tokens who are excellent at what they do, excellent tokenomics, excellent functional properties, but there's no interest to buy into it. So they don't have the volume to make it succeed. Parabolic is a great example, I would say, of one that seems to have it, but they don't have it right. Then you have other tokens because they're doing the Me Too-isms of this seems like it's popular, so we'll just copy that. NFTs. You see a lot of these tokens spin up, and the first thing they talk about is look at our NFT line. And they don't understand that the NFT, I would argue, market of the crappy apes and the garbage punks, this was a perfect situation that cannot be easily replicated because now people recognize people are just scamming people here. I mean, seriously. The Dolce and Gabbana thing is an aberration because they're pairing it with physical products that look like crap, but people who are super rich that have nothing else to do with their lives will easily buy it. And then they make headlines that this NFT sold for 12 million or 8 million or 24 million. And then people, these token developers, assume that must mean that's what we do. The truth is it's a scenario you cannot replicate because you're not doing the same thing they're doing. You don't have the brand of a Dolce and Gabbana. You don't have the brand of a Melania Trump. You don't have the brand of a Kardashian. So you cannot replicate what they're doing because they're simply banking off their brand, which took them decades to create. It's not the same thing. Thus, you are not, in a perfect world, you're not copying that storm. You're creating something new. You're creating something unique, specific to you, a problem that nobody else has solved, or if they've tried, they suck at it and you are doing it better. So as I cover tokens, I cover it under the premise that I am not holding. And if you're listening to any of our coverage and you're listening under the should I hold or not, we can't answer that question for you. All we can tell you is my strategy here, I do not hold hardly anything unless it's out of convenience, meaning that it's so little money, I just don't care and I don't even watch it. That's where Parrot Token is right now. It's about $40 worth of value, and I just sit on it. I don't care. If it succeeds, it does. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But I like the code. I hope they succeed. But number one, there's no opportunity to take profit. And number two, if there was, I wouldn't be inclined to do it because I think once, if and when they can, I apologize, get their head out of their ass and stop being triggered. And I've reached out to them with an impassioned plea to try to help them because it's sitting on gold. If they ever get that point in reality, I think this one is one that could be worthy of a hold strategy. Regardless, if it did get to the point where more volume came in, I would take profit because that's my strategy. Because I don't trust that any of these token devs can sustain success over time. That's the thing. Do I trust the developers to take care of this project? It's not even whether anymore the code is clean, the marketing, any of that, because they're all doing the same thing. They're all repeating the same mistakes. And as we cover them, you should see a pattern in the various tokens and what they're looking like they're trying to do. That pattern being, it's either a successful one and then great, but why is it successful? Is it successful because of Shillers? And I define Schiller as a Del Crypto of the world who says, nope, this is it. This is 100x. It's going. This is the one. And then turns out he may have profited off of a dump. Is it that? Is it that they have good marketing teams? We were supposed to have a token on the show and they backed out at the last minute. I don't know why. I don't care. We reach out and we want to help the token succeed. If they don't want the help, that's up to them. But in return, that's why we no longer trust the devs with our money. That's our strategy. We're not telling you that you should or shouldn't hold, unless it's one that's a high risk asset, which we'll recommend you don't hold because it's a high risk asset. Fundamentally, everything crypto has a risk associated to it. We can talk about the renouncing ownership all we care to. We can talk about locked liquidity all we care to. We can talk about KYC and fully doxed all you care to. We can talk about interactive devs all you care to. We can talk about AMAs all you care to. We can talk about what country they live in all you care to. None of it matters. Ultimately, I test, are you performing the way you told me? And I'll take profit where I can because I don't trust any of them with long term. Also, I can't trust that those devs will still be there a year, 2 years, 3 years. There was a token that we covered, Imperium Token. The founder dropped out of the project. Don't know why, but the founder dropped out. That token now is on a steep decline because they're changing away from the values that it initially started with, which I believe has harmed investor sentiment. And they're going all NFT, which makes no sense because the token itself was never based on NFT, which is why I had not trusted them long term with my money because they didn't take my recommendations about the white paper and the strategy and the messaging to and actually take action on it. No problem. But that means I don't trust you with my money long term because you're not doing what I know would get you some of that stability. Meanwhile, you have other projects that are the mainstays they're not going anywhere. Bitcoin, Ethereum, Doge. They're not going anywhere. Doge doesn't do anything. Bitcoin doesn't really do anything. Ethereum does, but two of the three of those don't do anything. And yet they're still here. They're mainstays. You can rely on them for stable investment. You cannot count on them necessarily for profit. That means it's up to you to pick a priority and pick a side. Choose a side. That's what you have to do. If your side is profit, your risk is going to go up in crypto. And you can choose if you just hold and wait for some sunny day scenario where it turns into $1,000,000 and you watch as your devs make stupid decisions where the growth should be way higher than it is. And because of their stupid decisions, it hurts the project and you can wait and maybe it's throwaway money where you don't care. Or you can take for profit. That's the choice you want to make. I wanted to clarify why I don't subscribe to the hold, HODL, hold, hodl strategy. Because I can't trust the devs to take care of that investment. And I treat it seriously as an investment. Even if it's throwaway money, I still expect it to perform or I'll liquidate it. Because at the end of the day, even if I wasn't profit driven, I also ethically cannot leave them with significant amounts of money. They're not entitled to it if they're going to basically throw up a middle finger at me by making stupid decision after stupid decision and then lie and then get triggered in telescam. So hopefully that's been helpful and informational as to the logic behind why we don't advocate that you hold. If you want to, you are free to. That's the beauty of the market. We're just saying you will never hear us advocate hold over taking profits going forward. You may hear others who tell you, no, just hold. Cool. If you believe them and they have a better argument than we do, by all means, because there's no right or wrong. You have to make a choice for your own motivation and your own strategy and your own level of risk. I will say this though, if you choose the hold strategy and you don't believe what we're saying and you don't think we're credible, or to use a term, full of shit, that's cool. I don't want to hear you whine and complain if that dude dumps on you, or if people sell out because the devs are idiots, or it ends up rug pulling because they decide to give money to some duck face girl, or they can't market it correctly, so the price is always crap. If those devs fail you, to me, I don't want to hear any complaints from you because you chose to hold. You chose that risk. Take it on the chin and say, I chose that risk. I chose to hold, and I chose to trust devs who let me down. I'm not going to be angry at the project. I'm going to be angry at myself because I had a choice to take profit and I didn't. And I know that sounds salty, but it's the only way you're going to get stronger in the world of crypto against what ends up happening to you, because it's going to happen to you. Everybody is going to get taken for a ride. I don't care how much money you put in. That's why you have to start building that shell, that armor when these things happen. And it starts with acknowledging that you made a decision to just hold because you were told to. And then you get cheated because the devs are incompetent or triggered. And don't get mad at them. Don't get mad at the project. Be mad at yourself because you could have had an opportunity to just take profit and move on and just treat that as your strategy going forward. Likewise, if you're one that does believe what I'm saying and you say, I'm just going to take profits on this thing, you shouldn't get emotionally upset if the profits don't show up. Because if you FOMO'd in or you YOLO'd in, you have only yourself to blame, because you repeatedly have heard me say, don't FOMO, don't YOLO. Only invest what you can afford to lose. Don't expect to get a gain. All we're saying is if you do get a gain, take it for what it is and then buy back in off the dip, but always take profits. You really can't lose if you have a profit take strategy, in our opinion, but you can almost always lose if you have a hold only strategy, because it's a game of numbers. You bounce from project to project, hoping that one's going to show up. When the truth is, if you look, it's getting harder for projects to succeed long term. And that's because people are getting smart to the devs that keep, even if it's not a legit rug pull, even if it's not a legit honeypot, even if it's not truly a scam, dev incompetence, the fact that the devs don't care about you and they jack up and mess up and do all sorts of mistakes that are blatant mistakes you could see a mile away. Those are almost more egregious than somebody who puts something out that's a blatant scam and says, I'll just take your money. And it's obvious it's a scam. They don't lock the wallet. They don't do anything else. They have, people who don't want to talk to you. They don't, like, it's obvious. I'd actually be more offended if you claim legitimacy, and I'll target Paratoken. I don't care. You claim legitimacy. You claim to have a message. You're sitting on gold. It's a great contract, but you guys want to be triggered. All these tokens do the same thing. And that's bad. And we shouldn't support those, in my opinion. But sometimes profit is there to be taken, which is why we have that strategy. Because we're not as invested in loyalty as many others are. Because the devs are not really loyal to you. If they were, they would listen when they almost cussed screw up, and they would take actions to stop screwing up, but they don't. The vast majority don't. We see that now with Floki again. It's frustrating. To me, it's frustrating. I would hope it's frustrating to you. But at minimum, you have to take ownership. If I choose a whole strategy and they jack it up, even if it's not a scam, they just screw it up and they risk me not getting to that million, I have to take it on the chin. I have to own that because I chose a whole strategy instead of a profit strategy. If you take a profit strategy, you have to recognize that I shouldn't put more than I can afford to lose, because that profit's not guaranteed. And that dev might screw me over, and I'm just going to have to deal with it at the back end.